I'm Cliff Tour, and this is Tales from the Cube, a podcast about working in the call center industry. The good, the bad, the funny, and not so funny about life working in the call center industry. Hello and welcome to another episode. Well, in this episode of Tales from the Cube, we're going to talk about call center terms. Just about any industry that you work in uses terms, uses slang language, if you will, to describe the activities that they're going to be doing. And the call center industry is no different. And I'm going to describe some of those things for you to give you an idea of some of the things that we use, some of the lingo in a call center that you will hear on a day-to-day basis and may have already heard if you're working in a call center. Some of it is quite bewildering at first, but once you get an idea of what it is, you'll understand how the call basically is monitored. Now, I did find a website here, VCC.live, and they have call center terminologies. So I'm going to look at those, and I'll tell you some of the most common ones that we have, or I'll tell you about the most common ones that are out there, so that you can get an idea. And I'll link to the article so that you can actually see it. And basically, there are 50 that are described here. I'm going to basically find the most common ones that are there that I will basically reiterate, because not every one of them is heard, but they are used. One of the most notable is the abandoned call. So what is an abandoned call? Well, simply it means that when a customer calls us and they start to listen to the IVR, they might say, I'm not interested in waiting for a lot of time. I'm not interested in doing this right now, so I'm going to hang up. That happens before the call even gets distributed to an agent. So what happens here is they call, they wait maybe a minute or two. I've done it myself. And it's like, this is going to be too long. I don't have the time today. So, boom, out I go. So I hang up, and that call becomes abandoned. It gets registered, but it becomes abandoned. So essentially, that's what's happening here. If it's too long for you, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, I don't really want to talk to the person, that's fine. You can do that. Just so you know, as a customer, when you do that, and you call back, you go right back to the bottom of the queue. Because you've abandoned your call, you're calling back in, you go right back to the bottom of the queue. So, and by the way, what is a queue? Well, queue basically, whenever you call in and you select in the IVR different things, like I want to talk about billing, I want to talk about technical support, I want to talk about buying a product, you're going to get pushed into what's known as a queue. And agents are skilled in the particular thing that they are going to be doing. I'm multi-skilled, for example. I handle a lot of different lines. So essentially, I can get a call about a router, and then in the next call I can get a billing issue, and the next call I can get somebody calling me that needs to speak to another department. I multitask. An ECD, well, you might hear this term. It's an automated call distribution system, and this basically is a facility that manages and forwards inbound calls to the appropriate agent based on preset handling instructions. ACD is one of the key features that are in call centers. So basically, it distributes where the call is going to go. So it's like a switch. So the ACD basically looks and says, okay, customer's doing this, customer's doing that. As I mentioned before, when they call in, or when you call in as a customer, you press 1, 2, or 3, you're going to get routed by the ACD, by the automatic call distributor, to the most closest queue, and then eventually you'll be drilled down into an agent. So it's like coming into, if you will, I guess the best way to describe it is different little chutes, and then you go in and you finally get into where you need to go. Or like when you go into a hospital or to a place where you have to go and do something, you might have to go into line A for one thing and line B for another, and so on. It's the same principle that you're having here, but this is on the phone. So you go into line A or line B or line C. After work, or ACW, that's a pretty well-known one. After call work basically means that the call is done. The cycle is finished in the call, and the customer, you have hung up as a customer, and we as the advisor or agent are looking at finishing up our admin work. So we're writing a note to the case, or a note to the file, or we're dispositioning the calls, particularly if we're in telemarketing. We're saying sale, no sale, call back, don't call back, add to this list, do this thing, and so on. So this is done. And usually we try to do this within a minute. So for example, in my particular campaign, I'm allowed up to 2 minutes. But generally speaking, I try to keep it down to 1. Anything higher is really not good, as you want to basically not have that. The average talk time. Now, this is a very interesting thing, because there's also something known as not average talk time, average handle time. Well, we're going to talk about average talk time in a moment, but average handle time is different from average talk time. The average handle time shows the average time the person spends in a call-related activity, including the conversation, hold time, and any other call activities. So basically, it's the actual handling time that is going on in a call. So how we handled it, what we did inside the call, this is the handling of it. And a call really works like this. When you call in, I'm sure you've noticed, one of the first things you'll hear, for example, if you call up, a bank, the bank advisor might say, hey, welcome to ABC Trust Company. Let's see if we can make your day really great today. What can I do to help you? That's the preamble of the call. The next thing is the probing section, where we probe for information. We're looking to find out what's happening, or we want to gauge what the call is about. So I understand, Mr. So-and-so, that you're calling about this or that. All right. I'd like to get some information here regarding what you're looking for, and of course, for verification, I want to basically confirm the account details. So we're going into those two parts as part of the probing, part of the setup of the call, and away we go, so to speak. We're probing for what's going on. We're figuring out what we need to do, and we want to figure out who the customer is. So that's a pretty important thing. In certain companies like Bell Canada, they actually do something known as the cone of sales. So we start from the wide and go right down to the very tip of the triangle. So it's an upside down triangle that is seen. And the cone of sales, when we do it, I don't do it anymore, but when we do it, it basically starts from this preamble, and you go into probe, and you go through all kinds of steps basically till you get to the end where it's the sale. So that's the body of the call. Now, when in the body of the call, we're trying to basically do one of several things. We're either troubleshooting, fixing a billing problem, or we're doing something like doing a sale. So that's the body of the call, the work, the actual stuff we're doing. And at the same time, we should be doing something known as typing and talking, so TT. And basically what happens there is we're just going, okay, we're listening to the customer. We're listening to you as the customer. And we're going, okay, no. We're not writing down what you say for the most part, with some exceptions. There's something in a case note, and this is another thing too, another term you might have heard, and it's not on this blog that I'm talking about and also quoting a little bit from. There's something known as a DROC note. So if you say something nasty to an advisor, it will get logged. And it cannot be undone for a period of time because of laws in Canada and the United States. And the reason for that is because a lot of times we're dealing with money. So because of that, there has to be a book, if you will, money that basically might be spent, has to be explained. So every account has a value. So because of that, we have to actually log it. And once it's in there, it cannot be erased out. It has to stay on the record for a number of years. So a bit of advice, particularly for advisors and people who are working in the industry. One of the things you want to do when you do what's known as a DROC note, you want to make it very, very general. So the customer was using foul language during the call. Customer was upset and used profane language during the call. The customer, made assertions and possibly also made some threats during the call. The reason for this is because tapes might only be kept for a certain period of time, right? There is recordings, and you'll notice when you call in as a customer, you're going to be told, hey, this call might be monitored for training and quality purposes. That's true. It is a thing. Now, you can opt out. One of the most important things you want to understand, though, is if you don't opt out, that call's recorded, it's kept for a little bit of time, and then it's busted out. So in the case note, you want to make sure, as an advisor or an agent or a telemarketer or whomever, that whatever note you write is clean. There should be no foul language. There should be nothing there that, if you have a derogatory note to put, it should be very professional in language, so that you're not harming the customer and you're not harming yourself in the company. In one instance, years ago, when I worked for a company called PC Mall in Montreal, I actually came across a case that had a derog note that had some very unpleasant things about the customer in it. I had to basically inform the advisor's team lead, hey, this is not procedure. You need to talk to them. And and sure enough, that's exactly, I heard them even being spoken to. It's like, you cannot put that kind of thing in a case note. We can get in trouble for that. And it's so true. You can actually get into trouble because customers should know that, yes, if you really want the case notes, you can get them. It's a process, and it may involve even a court request to get them. So it's important that as an advisor, you do not do anything in a case note that basically will cause the company, yourself, and of course the customer grief. So just don't do it. So just to give you, going back to the average handle time, it's basically talk time plus hold time plus the after work or after call, and that's the total number of handle calls equals that AHT. So if I do 10 calls, basically those things are factored in and calculated, and I get my AHT. Average talk time, let's see here. Average talk time, according to this VCC.live log, is the average value time spent by an agent talking with customers in a given period of time. It is calculated by using the following formula: total time spent in a call, all handled calls, ATT. So it's the total time. It doesn't account for the other things. It's not the average. It's the actual how long I was on the call, and basically for that particular call. So, and of course, all the other calls that come along with it. So there's the average handle time, and then there's the average talk time, and they are different because it's measuring two different things. It's a little complicated, a lot of math involved, a lot of science. Another thing you'll hear in the industry is something known as AUX, auxiliary time, or AUX. AUXes are definitely used. I use them all the time. I have a bunch of them that I can go into if need be, and then I have to ask permission for a couple of them, and in one particular AUX I have to go and get permission for. I just kind of shake my head because it's like, this should be a no-brainer. I should be able to do this, but that's what the boss wants. Okay. AUX time is the time that we spend in what's known as an unavailable state. And in a lot of cases, the AUXes that are used outside of available are non-billable, meaning we can't bill the client for it. We still get paid for the work, but the client does not get billed for the usage. So essentially what you need to know is that if you're going into an AUX, you need to be doing it with a good reason, and you need to, in certain cases, get permissions to go into the AUX, because the bottom line is you're costing the company money. So when I go into an AUX, when I'm asking for permission, I'm saying, is it okay for me to do something that doesn't cost the company or doesn't cost the client money? And the company has to say yes or no. In this case, it's my boss that's going to say yes or no. If they say no, I can't do it. So basically I have to find another AUX that I could possibly use to do what I need to do. And usually And hopefully if I'm still in the ACW, I'm going to do it there as opposed to doing it in another aux. It's important and it's understandable. And then there are auxes that are billable, training auxes and so on. And so for you who's calling a call center, you might find it at one point in the day it's a little bit longer wait. And the reason is that even though that call center might be staffed with a lot of people, there's some call centers that basically will say to a group of agents, go into this aux and do this particular thing, or read this particular document, or do this kind of training. So they're in the aux, and basically they're not taking calls. So that happens too. So there's that time that is also built in. Bell Canada, for example, has something, actually it's more at the top. It's not even in the flow of the workday. It's called read time. It is part of our duty. We log in, but we go into what's known as read time. Or we went into read time. And basically, you're reading whatever emergency flashes and notes and bulletins, and then you go in and you start your day, you do your calls. But you're still actually logged into the system. You're just not taking calls. So that's an aux. And basically, it's important to understand that you want to choose the right one, and you also want to make sure that you're not doing anything that's inappropriate. Call blending. Inbound and outbound. Like I said, multitasking. Blended agents or multitask agents are agents that are doing in and out. And that's what I do. I'm making calls. I am also going forward and taking calls. And I also take escalated calls. So actually I do three. The escalated call basically is what's known as an internal call to me from another advisor. And basically they're saying, hey, blah, 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 blah. And I go, okay, no problem. You do this. Or I might say, cool, I'm taking over. And basically that call gets handled by me. So that's basically how I work. So and then in the next moment, I might look and I might see, oh, okay, I need to call Joey back because Joey had a problem with his computer. So I'm going to call him back, and I'm going to basically work with him right now because I said I would call him at this time. I'm going to, go into my outbound auxes, and out I go and make the outbound call. So that's another thing. That's why I'm what's known as a blended agent. Well, let's see what else here. Callbacks, I would think pretty much straightforward. You're calling back the customer. You might do it in a setup form of a specified time, or you might have the dialer do it. Particularly in telemarketing, you might set up a call time, and you might not be the one that's calling them back, but another advisor will be, another agent will be, or a sales representative will be calling them back. So it's kind of important to understand that callbacks are done. It's pretty straightforward. Let's see what there's things here that we can talk about. Yes, the CRM. Known as the Customer Relationship Management Tool. A CRM essentially is a tool that allows us to go forward and actually manage the customer interaction. So when you call as a customer and you're speaking with us, we might be going into what's known as our CRM, and we're logging the case. We're doing this, so we're dispositioning the call. Now, a lot of times I get people who will say to me, well, why are you asking me these questions? I just want to do X, Y, Z. And I'll simply say, well, because we want to get a better understanding of your device or your problem. So we need to know a little bit about what is that your product does or is not doing in this case. So we need to ask some questions. We want to also know, is everything up to date on the product? And particularly with technology, there's firmware, software updates that need to be done. So we want to make sure that these are things that are done. So it's important to go forward and do that. Or in other instances, you might be talking about positioning with respect to what size are you? Are you a tall person? Are you a short person? Do you weigh X amount of pounds? What's your dress size? Or, okay, how many computers do you have? Do you need software for? Or how many, or how many how many of XYZ tools do you need for your trucking company to basically work on your trucks? Do you need so many kits put together for your tools and stuff like that? So we want to know all this stuff before we do anything, whether it's sale, technical support, or other things. Telemarketing, it's the same sort of thing. Okay, what kind of like if we're doing carpet cleaning, is it a shag carpet? Is it is it an older carpet, newer carpet? What kind of house do you live in? Is it an apartment? So on and so forth. So basically, the CRM tool puts that information together and builds the customer profile so that we know who we're talking with and what's going on and how we are to manage the call. Dispositioning a call is simply logging what was done at the end of the call. Was it a sale? Was it a callback? Did we get the issue resolved? Etc. And what type of issue was it? What type of device, if we're talking about devices? What type of thing was sold? This is a disposition. Every call gets disposition. FCR, first call resolution. We want that so much. FCR is a very, very important part. It is an important efficiency that we want to get in, because if we resolve, we sell, we promote, we do whatever, and we get the result that we're looking for, the client is looking for on the first hop, great. Because basically now, one of two things is going to happen. The customer is going to continue to buy from us or use our service on a regular basis, or never contact us back again. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I prefer when I see cases, and I'm looking maybe at, tops 40 or 50 cases over a lifespan of customer interaction with the client that we work with. When I see 300 or 400 cases on the client's profile, there's something wrong. Either we're not getting that first call resolution done, or what's happening here is that they're calling back for things that are just not doable or reasonable, and it gets really, really, really crazy. It's just not something that we want. So we want to try and get first call resolution as much as possible, so that we avoid and have low case count for each profile and high satisfaction for the customer. Let's see here. What else have we got here? That could be, interactive voice response, or IVRs. I've mentioned them already. What are they? They're the little place that you go to when you first call. Some people call it hell. I've actually been in places on phones where it's like, oh my god, this IVR is horrible. The music's bad and the IVR is not set up correctly. Essentially, an IVR is a tree of numbers, and basically they route to us. That's where the routing begins of the call. So you press 1, you press 2, you press 3, or whatever number, and you are going to be given more options until you get to where you want to be. That's what it is. It's a tree that is very big and goes down. It's almost like that cone of sales. So it starts with one thing and it goes right down into a whole bunch of other little things until you get where you need to be. Often, one of the fastest ways to get somebody is just press 0. Doesn't always work, but you can do that as a customer and it will work. You'll get somebody. But an IVR basically is just a tree of numbers that puts you in a different routing into different lines, as I mentioned before, so that you can get to the right place and get the right expert to work with you. That's what it does. KPIs are performance indicators. They are things like I was talking about: ACW, aux time, average handle time, ATT, efficiency, customer satisfaction, if you're doing programs that have that. These are indicators that are all looked at. One thing as a person who might be going into the call center industry should know, and you as a customer should know, everything is measured. Everything is measured. There's no such thing as not having a measurement for anything. Sometimes it can be brutal for this purpose, though. I say that because of the fact that if you're your KPIs are not that great, it can be a real problem. In fact, I'll be very honest, there's one particular KPI I'm looking at that is just messing me up, because there's a total that I look at that gives me a score, and I can't seem to get out of this thing. It's just a monster. I don't know what to do about it other than follow the path and do what management's asking me to do, and the different types of trainings and that I can get in under my belt so I can get through it. But it's just that the devil, if you will, is in the fact that there's one part that basically comes in that knocks everything off balance, and it just drives me nuts. But anyways, speaking away from that, I'll be actually addressing that in possibly another episode, because I'm going to be talking about what it is that's doing it, and that's customer satisfaction surveys. I will be doing that. It's probably going to be my next podcast. It's going to be about customer satisfaction surveys and so on and so forth. So KPI is basically indicating the stats. It's the things that really manage what we do in a day and how we're performing, and it's important because it can lead to promotion or demotion, if you will, or even bye-bye, you're exited. If you're not meeting the KPIs, you'll be asked to leave the program and the company. So it's important to manage that. It's important to look at those stats and take it seriously and do what you need to do. And as a customer, you need to know that you actually do affect the KPI, particularly when you're doing things like surveys. Yeah, you do affect us and what you say and what you do. So it's important to think before you do. And again, I'll be talking about that possibly also in that next episode. Manual dialers. See here. Well, basically, manual dialers. What can I say about them? Essentially, it's a manual dialer. It's a phone, or sometimes you're dialing into a hard phone and you're selecting different codes and you're dialing out. The way it's written here in this particular blog, manual dialers require agents, once they are ready to make a call, to manually choose records and dial phone numbers. This type of dialer gives agents time to prepare for the conversation and allows them to get acquainted with the customer's case and details. It's a lower efficiency they're talking about, and so on and so forth. But basically what it is it's literally, you can pick at a case, you can look at it, you can do things. And I've done manual dialers. And mainly really what a manual dialer is simply a cheap call center. A lot of these are rogue or illegal call centers that just use a phone. They pick up the phone, they have a phone book. Here's your list, it's your phone book. And you call people and you do stuff. Hate them, don't care. But when I go into a call center, if you have that kind of setup, bye. Not dealing with you. Come on, be professional. Get a dialer, and set it up properly so that we can do our jobs properly. Me looking through cards and stuff like that and phone books, I don't do that anymore. I've never been in sales since the 2000s. I haven't done much in the way of sales, and I don't work in call centers that don't have technology. The idea of me literally picking up a phone and looking at cards or a phone book, no, not going to happen. But that's a manual dialer. Straight simple. Let's see here. The PBX. Yeah, that's something that's interesting. A private branch exchange. There's a lot of times when I get, this is something interesting, I get a customer who will say to me, well, it looks like you're calling from XYZ. Well, no, actually I'm calling from Canada. Or, oh, you must be in, California, or you must be in Texas, or you must be in New York, or you must be in Alberta or Quebec or whatever. And it's just like, no, I'm actually in this place. And they might be seeing an exchanged phone number that shows in different location. That's a PBX. It's a telephone system that switches calls between users, and it basically is based in another location. It's a centralized system. And there might be several call centers that use different PBXs for the same campaign, but their different locations require a different PBX. And basically all it is a big switch. Let's see here. Well, power dialers. I've never heard of that one, but basically it's just a really amped up dialer, I guess. Predictive dialers. There's another thing that just basically that works on the basis of dialing more calls than the number of the agents that are in the project. Yeah, essentially what you're doing is building a list. You put that list in there, and you run it. It basically kills off dead numbers and such. It's more like scrubbing a list. That's what you use a predictive dialer for. It will go through and just kill everything off and find only the good ones, hopefully, and then you can call and work them. So it's really a great way to get rid of a list that has about a bunch of phone numbers that are no longer in use, or wrong numbers and things like that. That's what happens there. So they might use a PD for that, or a predictive dialer, or PPD as it's sometimes called, to do that. There's also the power dialer, as I mentioned briefly. Power dialers are automatic dialers that works on the basis of initiating as many calls as there are free agents. Yeah, that's pretty standard. It's basically, that's true of all dialers. They're all power dialers. When you're dealing with a telemarketing element, it's basically a power dialer that you're on, and you're just blasting out numbers, hundreds of them, to get agents in front of people and trying to sell things. Opting out. So there's another disposition that basically says that the customer's opted out. They don't want any calls. That's in the telemarketing realm. There are certain organizations that are exempt from that. I believe newspapers is one of them, political parties, emergency calls, of course. That's what it is. You basically say to the company, I don't want to be on your list. Take me off. Remove me. I don't want to deal with you, and so on and so forth. So that happens quite a lot in telemarketing. Don't call me back. And in certain places, including Canada, if you do not put the person on the do not call list, well, you're going to find yourself in trouble because you can get fined. The telemarketing firm can get a hefty fine for doing it. ROI, everybody knows what that is. Return on investment. Money back from what we're doing. And that's pretty much it. Now, essentially, the flow of a call from start to finish is, like I mentioned, the idle time. That's the time you're waiting. The introduction or preamble to the call. The probing. The body of the work. The resolution to the situation, and then the after call. And that's basically it in a nutshell. There's different parts of this that are going on, and all these terms that I talked about relate and flow around that. So in a call, just to wrap this up here and get moving on, in a call, basically you have the different parts of it, and it starts with when you first get in, you have idle time. You want to get out of that, and then basically you want to start becoming available. So that's the thing. And then you're taking the call, and when you're in the call, you do your preamble, probing, then you get to the issue, you resolve the issue, and then you wrap up the call. That's basically how a call works. And all of these things, all these terms relate to basically all of that, and how it's all measured, and it's pretty important stuff. So I would basically say to you, if you're going to be working in the call center industry and you want to be aware of that, that's the thing that I would do. I'd be aware of it, because you're going to be facing that on quite a regular basis. And with that, I'm pretty much going to end this, and I will see you in the next episode of Tales from the Cube. Thank you again for taking the time to drop in and listen. We really do appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one. Tales from the Cube can be heard on Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts, as well as through the Anchor platform. I'm Cliff Tour. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next Tales from the Cube episode.